presentation is brought to you by the Beljanski Foundation. Over 50 years of research towards curing cancer the natural way.
Hi, everybody. Oh my gosh, so great to be with you all today. Thank you for being here. It's a beautiful Saturday. The spring is finally here. It's like it popped last weekend. And well, you chose to be here at this event. It says a lot about you. You chose to be here in this conversation. I thank you for being a part of it, and I'm committed that you get something of value over the next 15 to 20 minutes or so that you can take and put in your life right away around the conversation of money. I had the opportunity of meeting Alex Lubarsky, who's headed up these events every year for the last several years. I met him a few years ago, and I shared a little bit about my view of personal financial responsibility and opportunities, and like really breaking through what limitations may be there, or any resistance or any concerns or wants or desires that are not yet fulfilled. And he said, wow, it would be a great fit for this event and this program. And I said, really? He said, yeah, because your perspective really aligns in the conversation. So I've worked down on Wall Street for about 15 years. And about 3 months ago, I launched my own firm called Opal Wealth Advisors based in Jericho. And I left a big Wall Street firm because it didn't quite relate to or speak to what I saw really made the difference in people's lives when around the conversation of money. And so I was really committed that we bring conversations that were beyond just money itself. So let me tell you where that evolved from. So about 5 years ago, it's 6 o'clock in the morning, it's cold outside, it's January, and I'm getting ready for a business trip. I just got out of the shower, there's a car waiting outside for me to take me to the airport, and I go into the guest room to start getting ready because my wife's sleeping in the other room, and I don't want to wake her up. After a few minutes of getting ready, she comes into the guest room, and she noticeably hasn't been sleeping. Her eyes are bloodshot, she's kind of shaky, and she sits down at the end of the bed, and she takes a deep breath, and she says to me, "What happened to us?" And what she meant by that question is, what happened to our relationship? We had been together about 12 years at that point, and we had really grown distant and grown apart. And we're really operating as two people just living together in the same home. And that began what eventually became a divorce between the two of us, but also a great unraveling for me on just who I saw myself as. I was 35 pounds heavier at the time. My cholesterol was 240. I had like a stark look at my face and like disconnected from people. I was also a top producer at a major Wall Street firm. I was making more money than I ever had, and I was unhappy. In several conversations that kind of followed thereafter, and working with several great mentors that I met along the way, I connected or saw how the impact of my parents' divorce had on my life. And I remember the day that my dad moved out, he and a friend of his walked into the house, and they walk down the hallway past me, and they pick up his dresser, they walk it down past the hallway, out the front door, and in the back of a pickup truck, and they drove away. And I remember saying to myself at that time, as like this like tension on the back of my neck like grew stronger, and I remember thinking to myself, I can't trust you. I can't trust anyone, really. I got to do it all myself. And life became about making it and doing things on my own. And I was studying to go into a career in healthcare at the time. Thought I wanted to be a hospital administrator, or maybe even consider going into medicine. I'm a cancer survivor, a childhood cancer survivor. So healthcare, the whole industry, has been very close to me, and a number of healthcare professionals made a dramatic impact in my life. My childhood heroes are still my nurses and doctors. One doctor in particular, Dr. Weinblatt, who was head of the pediatric oncology hematology unit over in North Shore. Remarkable man. Maybe I see some heads nodding. Maybe you know who he is.
He used to work for North Shore.
You did, yeah. Dr. Weinblatt, extraordinary person, right? He's over at Winthrop now. Yeah. So what I saw of that whole experience is that how when my parents got divorced, I remember thinking to myself, I can't trust anyone. I withdrew from everybody and I just focused on, I need to make money. I need to be successful. I gotta be able to do it on my own because without it, I won't be happy. And I went back to school for finance, got my degree in finance. I got my hand on every money book I could possibly find because I needed to learn how to be successful financially. Because if I accomplish that, then I'll be happy, right? Because it was all dependent upon me because I certainly can't trust anyone. I got involved in a business where I worked as an independent professional. I then, several years thereafter that, I would hit goals and the company would talk about working in team environments. And I said, I can't do that because I can't really trust anybody. Eventually moved on to the next company. I did break through some of those concerns about not working together. I found a few people that I can really work with well, but still not the same fulfillment that I wanted on the other side of that. Ultimately, I thought at some point, well, maybe if I get married, then I'll be happy. I got married, but what's right there for me immediately is, I can't trust you. I can't trust anyone. I got to do it myself. Those same patterns and decisions based on some past experiences. And I eventually discovered that. So while it was a real difficult period of my life 5 years ago, a lot of things really opened up for me that I'm grateful for. And I remember speaking to this psychologist who I went to see, who turned out to be a New York Times bestseller and author, who I had no idea, thank God, because I knew that she was so famous at the time or well known, I probably never would have went. So sometimes ignorance is bliss. And when I remember sitting down and talking to her, and she says, I said, you know what, I think money's the problem. I saw this whole thing. I said, I'm going to leave the financial services business and go into something else. And she says, can you see that's the same problem? And I said, what do you mean? I'm sitting here saying money is the root to happiness, and then on the other side now I'm saying money is the root of all evil. Like it's clearly distinct and opposite. And she says to me, it's not money that's the problem. It's your relationship to it. And that was one of those moments that will stick with me for the rest of my life. It was like I had to experience my brain breaking at that moment and seeing life newly, and started to see how I connected so much meaning and association and interpretation about all the things that I had done in life, particularly around my finances and how it related to how I operated in the world. So I want to share with you a little bit more about how I started to bring this forward and into my practice. Because then I said, well, maybe there's a new opportunity for me to show up as an advisor and how I relate with clients. Because as I started talking to people, I said, wow, there's so much conversation around money. There's so much meaning. There's so much significance that we assign. And in some cases, many of us are obsessed with it. In other cases, I saw people really resisting it. And there was like this whole spectrum of it. And I said, well, what if maybe money is, at the end of the day, it's really simple. You just earn money, you save it, and you invest it. It's really simple. But we have all of this past experience that invades the whole thing. So we started to integrate that into the practice and started to see clients have newfound results that were actually very inspiring along the way. So I want to share with some of the things that we started to integrate at Opal Wealth Advisors that I started at the previous firm, and I think that you'll find that's interesting. Now, this didn't show up that's weird how that showed up. So it says on here, financial independence and financial freedom. But when you hear the term financial independence, what do you think of?
Not having to worry about the bills, having enough to cover your bills, your lifestyle, and then be able to enjoy them.
Yeah, good. Maintain your lifestyle, pay your bills, and enjoy life. Good. What else? What else when you hear financial independence? What does that mean to you? You don't have to rely on anyone else. Good. Great. Anything else? I'm sorry? Self-employment, self-reliant, also in that. Good. Great. All of that is valid and accurate. But what's this term financial freedom? We define it differently. Because if you think about it, independence, having everything that you need to be able to fulfill your lifestyle, But freedom has a little bit different ring to it. When you think of freedom, how is that different?
Freedom is more or less not having to worry about your bills, having enough to cover what you have, be able to donate and do what you need to do, and then beyond that, be able to just not have to worry about getting up, go to work, pay your bills, go to sleep, get up, go to work, pay your bills, go to sleep, get up, go to work, pay your bills, go to sleep.
Yeah.
And then say, hopefully I'll make it to retirement.
Yeah, good. So you said some key words there that I want to hone into. Not a slave. Good. Slave. You said worry.
Yeah.
Even being a slave to it. When we hear freedom, freedom is an experience. So independence, as we define, is something you can measure. Financial freedom is an experience. And interestingly enough, you can be financially independent but not be free. Or not be financially independent and still be free. So there's these whole worlds that are two distinct that we started to see. And as I started to study this even further. So we started to break it down. What leads ultimate to financial success, at least in our experience as we began to see, there were money habits that worked. These are like the things that you learned, that you pulled off of a book off of a shelf, that gave you great tips and tricks. But then there was this whole other world of the money mindset. And there was like the most successful, how they thought, how they approached it, their views, their perspectives, and how that shaped their actions. And this third component that I saw of the most successful is really clear on what the mark they wanted to leave. So what I became a stand for is that people have a powerful relationship with money, and it fuels what's really most important to them. But what that requires is that we take money as the goal and remove it, and we put it in the background, and we get really clear on what's most important to us. Like, what do we really want to achieve? And that question in of itself, like what are my goals or what's my purpose, is really confronting. When someone asks me what are your goals, I hate asking that question. But when we get really clear and really look, like what do I really want, and put that forward, now that's really vulnerable to be able to put that out there. It takes a lot of courage to say that because maybe someone shoots it down. But when we do the work and state that, and then just put the right money structures behind it to fuel the accomplishment of that, well, that's a real powerful money conversation to stand in. So let me share with you a couple of ideas today around money habits, money mindset, and the money mark, and see hopefully it'll make a difference in something you could take away. So I'll start with a couple money habits. Some things that you might have heard before. One of the first ones, and one of my favorites, and it's like we talk to every single client about, no matter where they're at, is their money is pay yourself first. Anybody ever heard that term before? Pay yourself first? So when we say pay yourself first is, we tend to live up to the size of our checking accounts. If the money's there, we spend it. Just think about it. If you go back 15, 20 years ago and you look at what you made at that time, or 30 years ago, or when you first started working, when the money hit your bank account, you spend it. Today, it seems to still disappear. It doesn't necessarily grow. As soon as it hits, it's gone. If you're like most of us, including myself, once the money hits my bank account, and you may be looking and say, let's say $1,000 hit there for the week. And then you're saying, okay, I got to pay some of my bills. And the whole week you're like, hopefully it will stay even thin, that it'll maintain there, right? But ultimately, when you get down to the end of the week, you have $50 left. And with $50 left, you say, what do? You're all excited. You didn't spend the $50. What do you do with it? Right? We spend it, mostly. We reward ourselves. Now, we're paying yourself, so it's always such a task in order to save. But 40% of millionaires have a real strong budgeting discipline. 40% have a strong budgeting discipline. What the 60% do is that they pay themselves first. As soon as the money hits their bank account, they take it out. Like the day the direct deposit, if it comes in on Friday, it comes out and goes towards their savings, like their 401k plan, or maybe goes to their college savings. It's you remove the money that you want to save for your future comes out first, and then you live within whatever's left. And another powerful habit is to automate it. So have that money deducted from your account automatically. So those are a couple of habits that really work. Did you say 3 minutes left? Is that what I had? Yeah? Okay, got it. All right. Awesome. Now, here's the other thing. So what causes the results that we have in life? What's that?
Our decisions and actions.
Good. Our actions that we take. The actions we take lead to results. But you got ahead of me. What causes the actions we take?
It's your thoughts, it's your mindset.
Yeah, so what we call is our mindset, and what we refer to as our mindset. It's our perspectives. It's the context. It's our views of the world ultimately shape it. And our relationships, our experiences. So there's two things that I want you to think of. There's two concerns. One, our fear of success. I'm not going to cover too much of that right now, but I want to talk about the second one, fear of failure. Our fear of failure is the other thing that gets in the way. Because often when we think of failure, we often associate it with the I that failed. The I being me. We say, I failed. And there was a study that tested the brain's response on the statement, I failed, and the brain lit up dramatically. Because often what we associate with failure is the I, the me. And if I'm the one who failed, what happens is, you can't change me. So we would rather not even take an action at all, even though that we guaranteed no results. But if you look at the definition of failure, and I looked this up in the card today, it says the intended outcome was not achieved. The intended outcome. Nowhere about you or me. But when we shift the context of failure from being about us to the action, like the action didn't get the intended result, it can be an empowering phenomenon. Because if the I failed, what's there to do? Nothing. But if the action failed, what's there to do? Improve the action, change the action, take a new action. So you can see it creates some space and creates a shift in how you look at it. Last thing I want to leave you with, as I'm already out of time, is that there's a great book called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. And he says, we think we're in control of our actions, but we're not. We have the first brain, our intuitive brain, is all habitual, based on past experiences. It solves 2 + 2. It helps us when we step off the curb and there's a truck barreling down, and that we jump back. We don't actually process that decision. Most of the time, we act automatically. Now, we have this other part of our brain that makes us unique, our cognitive brain as human beings, that helps us think and solve problems. But we don't use it most of the time. We use mostly our intuitive brain. It helps us for our productivity. But the thing is, the intuitive brain is terrible with statistics, math, and finance. Let me give you an example. A bat and a ball costs $1.10. The bat is $1 more than the ball. What does the ball cost? You're all primed that this is a trick question. Bat and the ball costs $1.10. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. What does the ball cost? Most of you were thinking 10 cents. The answer is the ball costs 5 cents. If the bat is $1 more and the ball is 10 cents, it would imply that it would be $1.10 for the bat, but that would be $1.20 in total. The dollar difference is $1 plus the 5 cents, and then you get the answer coming together, $1.05 and 5. Most of us respond to our finances and handle our finances automatically. But what we need to do is use our cognitive brain and actually stop and think. And that's with the power of working with an advisor to help you step back and look at your automatic actions of working around money, not just the things you should do in a financial plan, but understanding how your brain relates to it. And you can shift everything that you want to accomplish. Last thing, money mark is understanding your target and where you want to go. Ultimately, at some point, you're going to realize is that you're going to stop counting time from the beginning and start looking at from the end and how much time you have left. And there'll be this all-pervasive worry and concern that, is this all there is? We only have now. So don't waste any more time. Take the action. You can shift it in a moment. Thank you, everybody, for being a part of the conversation, being with me today.